and welcome to Find Your Mojo, and we're in a fireside chat with Pramod Gubbi, founder of Marcellus Investments. Pramod, thanks a ton for joining in. I think the conversation that I'm raring to have with you is all about how do you get financially independent? How do you sort of, go after your passions in your 40s and sort of focus on things you love as opposed to do things because you have to put bread and butter on the table. So I just want to start with that, Pramod. Is it even possible to become a millionaire in your 40s in India?
But why not? The only thing is the definition of a millionaire. Would millionaire define financial freedom? It could be significantly higher than $1 million for a lot of people. It could be significantly lower than that for a lot of people. It depends on your lifestyles. It depends on your aspirations and so on. But yes, it is possible to pursue that path of achieving financial freedom where you have the choice at your behest to do whatever you love to do without having to commit to your daily routine, daily job. Perhaps not all of us end up with jobs which we love. Some of us do make compromises and continue doing because we need the money, we need to sustain our lifestyles. So having that choice, whether it's in your 40s or earlier or later, is always a great thing to have, and it is possible. And I see people all around me making that choice day in and day out, and turning towards their long-held passions, which unfortunately, because of their upbringing or certain constraints, they never could do it. And more importantly, the stream that I'm seeing is entrepreneurship, right? So you've been in a job, but you wanted that job security because you didn't have that, you didn't have those savings base and so on. So financial freedom, I think, more commonly will dictate, particularly in this generation, the point at which you say that, look, I'm out of the corporate job race. I have this idea or I have this dream to build, and I have enough savings to sustain, and hence I'm willing to take that risk. That freedom is something that all human beings will cherish, irrespective of whether you're in India or anywhere else. And I think it's increasingly becoming a reality in India. And if you talk about entrepreneurs, 40 is way too late. The new bunch of entrepreneurs in India are all in their 20s, maybe in their early 30s. So without deciding whether it's $1 million or the 40s, I think everybody should have financial freedom at the back of their mind and should work really hard. Not work really hard as in blood, sweat and tears, but more like be aware of what it takes for you to achieve your financial freedom, given your own individual circumstances of lifestyle, expenses, earning capability and so on.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is that enterprising spirit that a lot of people now are exhibiting. Times have really changed from what our forefathers did versus what people like us are doing. But I want to talk to you more about financial independence. So while you might want to be an entrepreneur, you may not have a safety net or a kitty to do so. So let's start with that first. If we've got 20-year-olds watching us today, I would not want to come across as saying, quit what you're doing, quit your 9-to-5 job and go after your dream just yet, right? It's all about building that net. It's all about making passive income flows more stable and then jumping into what you love to do. So talk to me about that. Why is it so important to make your money work for you? Because I think that is the focus of today's generation, right?
Correct, absolutely. I think the path to financial freedom has two aspects to it. Just like any, so one is how much you spend. Now, of course, if you spend all you earn, there's no question of where you invest and how do you invest and whether you make those money work for you, because there's no money working for you. The other is, of course, if you manage to save something, how do you save in such a way that you build that corpus sooner than later? The first one is a bit tricky, right? It's easy to say that be frugal, don't spend it all, live a ragged life, save everything. And of course, it's a no-brainer, you'll achieve financial freedom very soon. If you don't have a lifestyle to fund, then you can be free on day one. But that's not practical, particularly the generation now would want to live a life full of life, experience everything that life has to offer. So practically speaking, there will be a lifestyle at your age or stage of evolution in your career which you would want to fund. all you need to be is to be aware of to sustain this lifestyle into your 40s and 50s and post-retirement. What sort of corpus will you need? If you are aware, then it becomes a balancing effect, right? Never does it work in an extreme where you spend all your earnings, nor do you save all your earnings. Where do you find that balance? Whether it's 30% of your earnings, 50% of your earnings, 70% of your earnings, is something that you as an individual need to figure out based on the lifestyle that you're living today and the lifestyle that you want to aspire to sustain. That's a tricky bit, and I think each of us need to answer that. The first step is to be aware of what you're spending, whether your today's lifestyle allows you to sustain this lifestyle in future, because it's in some ways self-defeating. If you spend all your money that you're earning, obviously there's no question of saving and investing, which can fund your future lifestyle. And therefore that's an individual choice, and that's perhaps the trickier one. It's very difficult for people in this generation to make that choice. It's easy to go out and spend everything, but the point is to start saving early. Your first salary has to have a saving component. Even if you want to throw a party to your friends and family to celebrate the special moment of your first package, even if it's 1 rupee, is just developing that habit of saving very, very early. The second aspect is perhaps more interesting, which you were getting at, is how do you make your money work for you? And I love that sentence because I see this all the time. People in our generation, work for money so hard, almost 24/7, 7 days a week. They have very little time to make their money work for them. And it's very, very important, whether it's that 10%, 20%, 50% of your earnings that you've saved, how do you get that saving to work for you is worth the effort. Because, and I see this even in our own industry, which is full of financial professionals, and kid you not, this is so common among some financial professionals that they work so hard through the week, and in the weekend or in the free time when they get little time to look at what their savings are doing, what their investments are doing, they're simply so tired. They don't have the time nor the energy to look at it. And I find that a criminal thing. Having a high lifestyle is one thing, but having made the saving, if you have left the savings in suboptimal investments, it is far more criminal, because that adds up. In the long run, it makes a huge difference between how much corpus you could have accumulated by X age versus what you did by suboptimally allocating your savings. So it is very, very important to first take time out. You don't have to do it daily. Even if it means once in 3 months, you look at it and figure out, is this still in line with my goals? First, have a goal in place, and then work towards that goal through asset allocation. And here I would like to bring in the role of a financial advisor. It does seem like this can be DIY, right? This can be do it yourself, but I would warn people against that. It looks very simplistic, but you need a financial advisor for more reasons than one. One, of course, is the skills and capabilities, but even if one were to acquire those skills and capabilities, I think having an external person look at your own savings, your lifestyle, always keeps you on check. So have a financial advisor help you with working out with what you want to do with your money for the rest of your life. Your financial goals are yours, but the advisor can help you bring that out. And then given those financial goals, how do you prepare a financial plan? Financial plan would also involve, if you're spending, say, 70% of your earnings today, the plan might say that, look, if you want to achieve these financial goals, you have to spend only 50% of your earnings today. Yeah. So it could be one of those. But once you've decided how much you save, then you start with the asset allocation. And the asset allocation is very, very important, because each asset can go towards fulfilling one of your financial goals. And all of us have multiple financial goals, whether it's the retirement corpus or my kids' education, or to say that I want to have so much corpus to start off my dream entrepreneurial journey, or I might have a favorite philanthropic motive that I want to build a school or a hospital in my grandfather's name, whatever it is. You have each goal assigned and you prioritize each goals and make assets or allocation against each such goal, your advisor can come and help. And don't forget the most important goal, which is your plan B or the emergency fund, because in the day and age that we live in, we can lose our income pretty much anytime. So you need to start off with that scenario. Should you lose your job for whatever reason, can you sustain your family's expenses, your lifestyle for the next 12, 24 months? It's up to you whether you want to build a 12-month expense kitty or a 36-month expense kitty as your buffer. But I think most of us would fall between those two brackets, depending on our risk appetite and so on. You start off with that, and that, I believe, should not be meant for returns, should not be meant to maximize returns. That money should be invested in a place where all you have to do is ensure capital is protected, maybe protected in real terms, right? You're not going to become rich by how much your emergency fund performs. Your emergency fund has only one purpose: to be available to you when you need it the most, and with its full spending power, which means at best what you're targeting as returns is inflation, right? You protect the spending power of that money, and that's period. If you're taking any more risk on your emergency fund, it defeats the whole purpose. So therefore, the safest instruments perhaps are fixed deposits in a scheduled commercial bank. You might want to look at potentially arbitrage funds or certain liquid funds. But in this day and age, even liquid funds don't give you inflation. So I would say a fixed deposit in a public or a scheduled commercial bank of good quality is a good starting point. The rest of it is for creating wealth and fulfilling your dreams.
Pramod, it is really the power of compounding, right? And I think that is where the magic really happens. It's not about getting an investment. Of course, reviewing it is important, but changing your investments may not be always idealistic. And I want to talk to you about that, right? Because today what we land up doing is, because we're so taken in awe of what the equity markets are doing, most of us focus on a product as opposed to an asset or a goal or a time horizon, right? So I want you to talk to us about that. So if your time horizon is maybe a decade or even 2 decades, what is the sort of asset allocation one would look at? If it's going to be equity, debt, index funds, international investments, alternative investments, right? What sort of an asset allocation would there be? And underneath that, of course, then we can talk about various routes of getting into the asset that we want exposure to. So because really for the next 2 decades, we're largely custodians, we're not going to use a large part of that money. So I think that is where we need to start with.
Absolutely. So once you've set aside this emergency fund for any sort of unforeseen purposes, you also need to figure out any sort of shorter term goals you might have. For example, buying a house or a car often is a shorter term goal. And any goal less than 3 years should be fulfilled through fixed income assets, much akin to the fixed deposit or at best a debt mutual fund, not taking any credit risk, not credit risk funds, safe investments. Less than 3 years, I would define as shorter term. More than 3 years is longer term. So your emergency, which is the unforeseen liabilities, plus your foreseen liabilities of having to buy a car or a house or sending your kid for education in the next 3 years, has to be in those fixed income. It's after that your wealth creation and fulfilling your longer term goals comes in. In my view, any money that you don't need in the next 3 years should be in equities. It could be in domestic equities, should be in international equities, up to you. I'm not a big fan of gold nor real estate as asset classes. You can think about them as diversification sources, but for longer term wealth creation, I don't see them comparable, because equities clearly have had enough of a track record in terms of bringing down the risk from a longer term perspective. Equities by definition are volatile classes, but that volatility drops significantly after the 3rd year. Therefore, any financial goal beyond your 3rd year can comfortably be fulfilled by equity allocation without having to dabble in real estate and gold. Gold clearly from a returns perspective suffers. Real estate of late in the last 10 years has suffered from a real estate perspective, but the bigger challenge with real estate is liquidity, right? If when you exactly need the money, you need to liquidate this real estate. And if it's not going to happen, that's almost worthless. So I would leave real estate and gold out of my discussion and look for equities. Any amount that you're planning beyond 3 years should be in equities. And you brought in a beautiful point, a very underappreciated point about international equities or international assets. Increasingly, people of our generation, younger generation, have a lot of liabilities overseas, whether we plan to send our kids overseas for education, we plan to buy a home in our dream holiday destination, or our regular holidays. I mean, look at the number of people doing international holidays. So we have an internationalized expense and liability schedule. Why not have an internationalized asset schedule to balance that up? So it's important. So in a nutshell, for wealth creation and compounding your wealth, you need heavy exposure to equities. Of that, a small part can go towards your international equities as well.
Right. Pramod, I'm running out of time, so one last question I'm going to transmit in. Very direct. If I've got to put my legs up and quit my job, if it's a 9-to-5 job, and assuming I don't love it, what is it that I should be doing today? Should I go aggressive and buy high risk? Maybe sectors that might be high risk. Everyone's talking about cryptocurrency. I know there are regulatory issues on that, but just give our viewers, our young viewers, a sense of what they should be doing. A lot of people are getting aggressive. People are trading options, futures. Is that the right way? If not, what is it that one should do to retire in the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is individual, because our financial goals are different and individualistic. I would map all your financial goals on a trajectory. These are sort of must-achieve financial goals, and these are nice to have. And these are, I want an outsized chance of achieving this financial goal. I want an outsized chance of entering the Forbes 500 billionaire list. Why not, right? So if you can map that out, accordingly, you can map out your investments against these goals, because then you would know what sort of risk you're prepared to take on each of those investments. On your emergency fund, like I said, zero risk, right? So you do that. On your kids' education, longer term goals, I don't mind taking a little bit of risk, which is why maybe you invest in large cap equities, maybe a little bit in small cap equities. Then you want financial freedom. So small cap equities can give you that. Alternate asset classes like venture capital or seed investments can give you that. An outsized chance of getting rich today is crypto, like they say. I would say don't go zero on it. Put in a small amount, which if it goes to zero, you don't lose sleep, because that's a really outsized chance of becoming rich. And accordingly, if you can manage your financial goals in a stepwise based on must achieve, nice to have, or great to have, you can manage your investments also mapped out against each of these financial goals equally.
It's all about goal-based investing and getting that perspective right of what you really want to achieve, right? I mean, of course, some people can get high-flying jobs or live a very sort of mediocre lifestyle initially to, build that corpus. But I think if you're practical, do your asset allocation, put your head down, figure out what exactly you want to do. I think this could definitely be a reality where, putting your feet up at 40 could be your sort of calling. But Pramod, great talking to you as always. Thanks for your time and have a great evening.
Pleasure, you too.